Hello, everyone, and welcome to another author interview brought to you by BookTrib, the leading source for book news and reviews. My name is Chelsea. I'm part of the editorial staff here at BookTrib, and I'm thrilled today to be joined by not one, but two authors to talk about an incredible new book. We have Marie Benedict, who is a lawyer with over 10 years experience as a litigator. She's also the New York Times bestselling and USA Today bestselling author of The Only Woman in the Room and The Mystery of Mrs. Christie, among other novels about forgotten but remarkable women throughout history. And we are also joined by Victoria Christopher Murray, an acclaimed and prolific author of more than 20 novels, including Stand Your Ground, an NAACP Image Award winning novel for outstanding fiction, as well as a Library Journal Book of the Year. And together they have written The Personal Librarian, which tells the incredible true story of Belle da Costa Greene, the personal librarian to financier J.P. Morgan, who curated a world-renowned collection of rare books, manuscripts, and artwork. And for a woman at the start of the 20th century, her position was unprecedented. And it would be an incredible story if that was where we ended, except that Belle da Costa Greene was not the white woman of Portuguese descent that she claimed to be. She was in fact born Belle Marion Greener, the daughter of the first Black man to graduate from Harvard and a strong advocate for racial equality. So she was a Black woman passing as white, and her secret put her in danger, and it also came at a huge personal sacrifice. So Marie and Victoria, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us, and you just did a great job.
Thank you.
I was just thinking, Victoria, I love how she described the story, like leading up the whole piece of, it was remarkable, even if you didn't know her secret, because it really was. That was fantastic. I've never heard it described like that.
Well, I'm happy to do this incredible book justice then.
Would you like to come on tour with us?
Right.
Okay, great. Yeah, let's do it. So it's been a few weeks since the book was released. Instant New York Times bestseller. Also the Good Morning America July book public. So congratulations. How has this past few weeks been for the both of you?
Ooh, go ahead. It's so funny because I ask Marie that all the time. This book was her idea, and I know we'll get more into that. And so on the day that it came out and we were sitting in the Morgan Library and I was trying to learn how to walk in heels again, I said to Marie, did you know, did you have any idea how this was going to be when you reached out to me? It's been amazing, right, Marie?
Oh my gosh, it has been such a whirlwind. I mean, boy, I guess, Victoria does ask me that, like, did you ever think it was going to be like this? And I hoped that people would be receptive to her story. I hope that, gosh, you always hope that they're going to see all the things, that you see in it. But I could have never envisioned not just the Good Morning America and the New York Times. I mean, those things in and of themselves, I couldn't imagine, but the individual responses that Victoria and I are getting are just so meaningful.
The reader's response is something I did not expect at all.
Me neither.
It's an incredible story. And, in preparation for this, I read an interview that you did with the Washington Post, and you were talking a little bit about editing the book in the midst of, sort of a look at race. That was a strange thing to say, but, George Floyd and everything going on. And so it's a timely story that you guys have written.
Yeah. I mean, I think we suspected it when, without going too far into the back and answering some questions you haven't even asked yet, I first became aware of Belle a long time ago. And as time went on, I suspected her story was both historic and modern. And as Victoria and I dug into it, it became even more so. But oh my gosh, I mean, the things that happened in our country as we were knee deep, roll up your sleeves, kind of editing, really were transformative, both for the book and for us. So yeah, I could have never have anticipated any of that.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
So, I mean, well, let's talk about our heroine here. When did you first encounter Belle, and what was it about her story that made you want to immortalize it in fiction?
Oh, such a good question. Again, I need to borrow you for Victoria. We need to bring her on. So as I just mentioned, I first became aware of Belle a couple decades ago. I was still a New York City lawyer, which I was for a long time, a commercial litigator at a large New York City law firm, working crazy hours and knowing that it wasn't what I was really meant to do with my life. And I would sneak off. I call it sneak, although it's not like I was, literally sneaking. It's just that I worked till like midnight every night. So to actually go out at 5 o'clock to the Morgan Library as sort of a respite, meant that I had to then sneak back into the office for my night shift, But I would go to places like the Morgan, but the Morgan in particular, to kind of as a sort of a refuge, a way to kind of envision a different life. And I happened to be there. I was there, so I don't even know how many times. And a docent once happened to mention Belle da Costa Greene to me. She mentioned that, in this, for the people who don't know what the Morgan Library is, I think it's important to put it in context. It's, oh my gosh, one of the most beautiful libraries in the world. I mean, the original building is four rooms. I always call it like a jewel box. I mean, it's crimson and gold and just absolutely stunning, really. And it holds one of the world's most priceless collection of rare manuscripts and Renaissance artwork as well. And this docent happened to mention that J.P. Morgan, who built the library and it opened in 1906, hired a woman to run it with him at his side, really as his librarian at first, but she became so much more: curator, a representative, bargainer, researcher, you name it. Professionally and personally became a lot more to him too. But as you said, I was struck by how incredible that was for the time, right? Early 1900s, a woman in the world as JP Morgan's representative, like wielding tons of power, in and of itself was amazing. And she kind of worked her way onto this long list of women that I keep, that I write books about. And over the years, I started to turn to her story and kind of research her a little bit. She wasn't very well known. And then as time went on, it became clearer that her history was so much more interesting, complex, and that she was actually passing, as you mentioned, but that not just passing, but that her parents were, which Victoria can talk about a little bit more, but her parents were these incredible people at the time. Her father was this activist, well-known in his time. Her mother came from this incredible community, rich cultural heritage, free people of color in Washington, D.C. And the times were such that she had to, really put that all behind her and hide it to live as a white person in the world. So as I started to learn that, I knew I wanted and needed a Black woman to write the story with me, that Belle deserved to have her story told by a Black woman as well. And that I knew that what my limitations were as a writer, and that it wasn't right or appropriate for me to try to envision what it would have been like to be a Black woman in the world then or now. Really, that's something I really cannot envision, nor would I try to. And I read, you mentioned Victoria's wonderful novel, Stand Your Ground, which is, everyone should read if they haven't already. It's just this masterful look at a really difficult, terrible issue in our country of young Black men being shot. And it tells the story from the perspective of his mother and the wife of the white police officer that shot him. And it was just such a different, thoughtful look at such a hard issue. I just hoped that she would have an interest in writing the story with me. I hoped. And so I sent a treatment her way via her agent.
And so I got that treatment, and my agent said to me she wanted me to look at this collaboration, which was fine because I'd written 6 other books with another author, Shonda Tate Billingsley. So I love collaborations. I love working with another author better than writing on my own. But so I was open to it until I Googled Marie Benedict, and I read this wonderful thing about how she wrote historical fiction about women lost in the folds of history and all of these great things. And so, but I couldn't make the connection with Marie and me. And I called my agent back and I said, are you sure like Marie wants me? Like, has she seen a picture of me? Because I hadn't read anything about from the treatment. And so I just couldn't imagine what kind of collaboration we would do, historical, contemporary, black, white. What was she thinking? And so my agent was like, just read the treatment. Well, I didn't do that. 4 months, I didn't do it because the first page was all about JP Morgan. And I just couldn't connect to JP Morgan. I was like, I don't care about this man. And my agent kept calling me back saying, have you read it? And I'm like, I'm busy. Finally, she said, you ain't that busy. Read 2 pages. And so by the time I got to the second page, I was now engrossed because it got to Belle and the story. And when I got to the end where Marie had buried the lead, you know, she hid the good part in the back. I couldn't wait to speak with her and to do this project. My only thing at that point was, would Marie really, for somebody who had this success and who had been writing for so long on her own, would she be able to do a collaboration? The moment we were on the phone together, I knew we would. The first call, I adored her. First call. And I knew we could. I didn't know if Marie thought that we would be able to.
I knew from the minute we had that conversation, and I've told Victoria this before, but it's funny. One of my good friends was with me during one of our phone calls. I can't remember, one of our very early phone calls. And we had to touch base about something and I hung up and my friend said, wow, how long have you guys known each other? And I was like, well, really our first phone call was last week. And she's like, what? She's like, you two are like, you know, really like, it's like your old friends. And it really was a connection like that right from the start.
Instantly.
But Victoria also, I mean, I knew too, we had this connection. She had such a wealth of experience in co-writing, you know, and as she taught me, each collaboration is different, depending on the story, the structure, the way you're approaching it, the strengths and weaknesses of the 2 writers. And, you know, we were in this, we couldn't have known in that first phone call, but thank goodness it did prove to be true. We really complement each other so well in our strengths and weaknesses. The things that I love to do are not on her top 10 list and vice versa, believe me. It's funny, this is an aside, but Victoria, I hope this isn't too much of an aside. My parents and one of my sisters are away together right now, and they're all reading our book. It's like their own little book club. And they came to a particular scene, which is, we'll call it a little bit romantic. And my dad was like, I don't know if I can read this. And I told my sister, who you correspond with, that to tell her that Victoria wrote it, if that makes it a little bit more palatable. And that's just like one of them. I cannot write a scene like that.
I did.
Victoria, she's got it down. I mean, that's just one of many examples, you know. I love a first draft. Victoria hates a first draft.
I hate and then, but Marie, once the first draft is done, she's like, done, the book's done. Why do we And then I like, that's when we take it and we can make it richer and layer it. And but both of us had to do parts of the story that we didn't enjoy doing, but it felt better because we were doing it together. At least for me, it felt better.
Oh, same for me.
Every single word of this book we wrote together. Absolutely. So even though Marie talks about that romantic scene, well, that was way ahead. That was the first draft for me. I could do that in the first draft. And then Marie we would write and then switch off. So first we talked out everything, every chapter in this book for long periods of time, just what we wanted to see happen. So even though I was writing a scene, Marie's words made it into it. And then we would switch off and then polish it. And then we did the whole thing together. I'm just so proud of this collaboration. And it's one of the best things I've ever done in my writing career.
Oh, me too, by far, by far.
That's incredible, truly. I mean, like you said, I think for some people, the idea of writing a book in and of itself is challenging, and then to add another person in the mix. But you guys have almost got like a little professional marriage and, you know, your partners and leaning on each other. And that's really lovely.
Yeah.
She's my soulmate. I think
Yeah.
you need to have a writing soulmate. I don't think any two authors can write together. I think you have to not only complement each other, and we completely complement each other.
Absolutely.
It's just crazy how it works. Just like Marie always does this, and that's
She always knows what I'm about to say when I go like this.
yeah, and it's exactly. But you have to have a trust.
Yeah.
Where because sometimes you're going to say no, that doesn't work. And when you say that, or when you say no, we have to add this in. I remember there was a call one time. We did almost everything by Zoom, but one time Marie called me on the phone, and she was like, "We have to change a scene that I had written and she had polished and everything." She's like, "We got to change this," and my response was, "Oh, okay. What do you?" And that's what your response has to be. A lot of times, somebody may say, "Well, I just wrote it." No, you have to do this because you're working together for the betterment of the book.
Right. And having that trust, knowing that your partner has that same goal. And Victoria said to me very early on something so selfless and gracious, and it stayed. I hope I met that challenge on my end, but that there was no ego. It was all about the betterment of the book. And that really set the stage. And then as time went on, we knew we could trust each other in terms of the book and the character, but as time went on, we knew we could trust each other as friends and sisters as well. And that led to not only a change in our relationship, but obviously a huge change, I think, in the way we were able to talk about Belle, think about Belle, get into Belle's head in situations where we didn't have any clear historical record about how she felt. Passing is one of those things. We don't know how she felt about passing because she destroyed really all of her personal notes, correspondence, journals, anything. The only thing that really remained were letters that she wrote to her great love, Bernard Berenson. And even in that, which he was supposed to destroy, but like most men, he didn't. I'm just going to throw it out there. But of course, she wouldn't have even discussed that in those letters because they never talked about the fact that she passed. So that was something that we had to really trust each other and have all sorts of conversations about racial issues for Belle and then as people, because as you pointed out, I mean, the world, as we were deep in the edits, the world around us changed.
And it was really good because Marie is the research expert in this partnership.
I'm a history nerd. Let's just talk it like it is.
And she's taught me a lot, so I can do it now. But she is the expert. But we took everything that we knew about her, all the facts, so that when we had to decide what she would do in the fiction parts, we could stay true to her character. And we could stay true to what we knew about her. And that's what we tried to do.
Yeah.
So we think the fiction parts are pretty close to what would have happened.
What might have happened, yeah.
It's an interesting exercise to have to kind of fill in the blanks where you don't have documentation to back you up, but you guys have put together something truly, truly wonderful, in my opinion. So, you've talked a little bit about your collaboration, and honestly, it sounds like a match made in heaven, truly. If there's a definition of soulmates, I think it's this. You guys truly complement each other very, very well. I'm wondering, can you talk a little bit more about the process of filling in those blanks? What do those conversations look like? How far does research lead you? And then where do you break off and need to add some more material to the novel?
Do you want to, Victoria, do you want to talk about that first scene when the interview happened?
Yeah, because I thought that when you did that the other day, I thought that was so good. Marie said, for example, there are the facts that we know. We know the date that she interviewed for the job, and we know she got the job. But we have no idea what happened in the interview. And so but we know she got it. So then knowing Belle and knowing J.P. Morgan and the kind of personality he had, the kind of personality she had, what she had learned from her mother, we were then able to put together, as we talked it through, what would they have said? He would have looked at her like a piece of art, you know, because he was that kind of man, you know, and so we were able to put it together, staying true to the characters as we came to know them.
Exactly. It's like, it's hard. I think that's such a great example, Victoria, because it's hard to explain. It's not like a formula, like, oh, you take a little smattering of a letter and a tiny piece of the artwork on the ceiling and you put it in a blender and a scene comes out. It's more that, you know, like the way I tend to describe it, just in general, is like all of that, the facts that, you know, the date that the interview happened, the state of the Morgan Library at that time, right? The fact that Junius, his nephew, was there, and that's how she got the interview in the first place. Like, you know, those things. And then Victoria and I are talking deep in the character's sort of mindset and extrapolating from that. Extrapolating from what we know about their characters, what we know about the actual scene. And, you know, this is a great example, I think, of the first draft, my attempt in this particular scene of Victoria, you know, saying, well, let's take a deeper look at this. You know, I think in one little part, I had envisioned kind of just a dialogue between them. And, you know, here, you know, Belle is kind of dealing with the difference between her, you know, her mindset, the things that her mother has taught her about how to behave, and how she's sensing J.P. Morgan might like her to behave. And so there's a little bit of a repartee, but not quite. And then Victoria says, but wait a second, let's think about what J.P. Morgan was like, how he was, you know, he was an appraiser of art. He was a collector of women too. How would he have looked at her? And she was so right. In that moment, she suddenly becomes a work of art that he's thinking of collecting as well, right? He's going to, you know, kind of perambulate around her. He's going to study her. And suddenly the scene changed quite a bit. So I don't know if that kind of helps explain how it works without having a clear formula. But then again, every chapter is a little bit different, wouldn't you say, Victoria?
Yes, every chapter is different, which is why we talked out every chapter.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there were things we didn't know. Like, we didn't know if they were ever romantically involved. All we had was an interview where someone asked Belle, this was the truth, and asked her, were they ever involved? And she said, we tried, with a laugh. What does that mean? So we, for months, really, we weren't sure how we were going to handle that. We went back and forth, and then we were able to weave it into the story. But what does that mean?
Right.
And the more we came to know Belle and J.P. Morgan, as you're writing the book, you know the characters better. The more you come to know them, the more you can say, okay, this is what we think happened. In the beginning, that's a very hard, difficult thing to do. You don't know them as well.
That's right.
That's great. Yeah, no, thank you. That was wonderful. Victoria, I want to ask you, in the intro to the GMA segment that you were on, you said if Black Girl Magic had a name, it would be Belle da Costa Greene, which,
yes.
Wow, what a thing to say. I love that so, so much. But can you explain what you mean by that a little bit more?
Because she was all things to everyone. I mean, she lived a magical life. And I don't mean just in terms of she could be an uptown girl with the Vanderbilts, and downtown in the village and living the bohemian lifestyle. What I meant was she had to do kind of magic tricks just to exist. She was, one of the things that Marie always says is she was just living out loud in plain sight. She was hiding in plain sight. Just being so flamboyant, so over the top, that anyone who looked at her skin says, well, she can't be Black. A Black person wouldn't be bold enough to do that. And so what I mean by that is she had to do all things at all times for everyone. She was building this for J.P. Morgan. She was taking care of her family. She had to go to the highest end events, but she could hang out in the pubs and smoke a cigarette and drink dark beer with anybody down there. And that's what I meant by magical. Her life really was magical, but she was every day doing tricks to just kind of exist.
A truly incredible woman.
Incredible, truly incredible. And we all find ourselves doing that to some extent, in our lives. She just took it over the top.
And Marie, as you've mentioned, as we've established, you've written so many books about incredible women throughout history. So I'm wondering, you said you wanted to write her story for so long. What is it about Belle that stands out for you? And how does it now feel that it exists? You've done it.
Right. Well, I mean, you summed it up so beautifully at the beginning. I don't want to restate your own work. You really did. I mean, at first she was remarkable for the reason that many of the women that I choose to write about are remarkable. She rose up and really claimed great power and success at a time when women couldn't even vote, when women had no power. And that in and of itself is remarkable, right? And that was the original sort of entree into her life. I didn't realize at first. The docent never told me that she was passing. I wonder if the docent even knew that she was passing, because the biography that came out about Belle, which really details that, people knew that she was Richard T. Greener's daughter, but it wasn't as widely known and documented until the biography. And that came out, I think, in 2007. And this conversation would have taken place long before that. But once I learned about who she really was, not just as Victoria likes to describe it, the mask that she had to wear, which were different masks. Again, another example of her magic, a mask for the office, a mask for the parties, a mask at home, a mask down with her friends in the village. The person that she was behind all that, which again is a theme I'm really attracted to, that theme of authenticity and how hard that is for women then and now. That was so complex and so complicated, but also it was such a look into, in many ways, the origin of so many of the racial issues of our country. She was born during a time period when equality seemed possible, when we were on the right track. There was the Civil Rights Act of 1875. There was this moment of integration, which her parents were very much a part of. Her father was the University of South Carolina, was briefly integrated. Her father was a professor there. It was time of such hope and possibility. And that was her original kind of legacy, I think, that her parents would have wanted her to have. And when that all was stripped away and segregation rose up and the Jim Crow laws rose up, Belle had to take a different path, one that kind of buried her authentic self, the legacy that her father would have left for her. And I think the reverberations of that played out in her own life and continue to play out today. And to me, her story was so timely, in a way that, gosh, I couldn't have even imagined when Victoria and I started, like how timely it really was. And so I think in that way, her story is doubly remarkable, right? It has so many layers the further you peel it back, and so many stories and lessons for us to learn from it. So the fact that, do you ever feel like you've done it, right? That was one of your questions. Have you achieved that? I mean, I always hope in all my books, but especially this book, to honor the woman I'm writing about. Even though we write fiction and this is our version of Belle, it's based on a real person. And they're really my heroines. I want to honor them. But I hope that more than anything that we've done it here, and the reaction that we're getting from people, I don't know, I don't know how you feel, Victoria, but I really feel like I can never say we've done it 100%, but I feel like the reaction is what we would have hoped for.
But yes, what we would have hoped, and I never expected this reaction from readers. It's so definite on how they absolutely adore this book, adore this woman, and they want to know more about Belle, but now they want to know more about all these other women.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm so happy about is a lot of people have been following me. Now want to know, okay, so what other women has Marie discovered that we don't know anything about,
They're waiting for us.
They're waiting for us.
They're waiting.
That's incredible. I mean, you both have in that way opened a door for people to learn about a number of different women throughout history, which is a gift, truly.
Yeah. It's a gift. It's this whole process, the book, the process has been a gift to me.
Oh, me too. And more than anything, my friendship with Victoria, writing this book and having the reception that it is and that Belle is having in the world. But our friendship and the experience of writing this book together is the most important thing for me personally.
Me
That's
too.
wonderful. All right, well, we are at time, but I want to thank you both for joining me today. This has been incredible. For those of you watching, The Personal Librarian is available wherever books are sold. So go get yourself a copy. It's going to be great. Thank you both again. This has been really wonderful.
Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.